we could always flirt, and that part I did see. They've made movies about this and Footloose, and you could tell that there was always children who were willing, especially in the high school age group, to kind of skirt the line, right? Religion was usually in the way. Everybody would try to put on their church dress and behave in front of their parents and the elders, but you always had to be answerable to someone at the end of the day. Your behavior couldn't be outwardly bad in front of the community. You get your ass whooped. If your neighbor saw you doing something, they would tell your parents. So you had a large amount of accountability in your environment for your behavior. So once again, the absence of that environment leads to a good breeding ground for debauchery. So the absence of fathers, right, and nobody in the neighborhood or people in the neighborhood now being scared to check a child, right? They'll see whatever's going on. They'll see two teenagers humping behind a dumpster, mind their business, and just go about their way. So I think that also contributes to it. There's nobody checking this behavior in the house. I hear now, like it's kind of scary. I don't know why my ear is so keen to it, but I hear everything inappropriate that comes out of my children's mouths. And then I have to tone down my reaction because they just learned that from somebody at camp. Right. So it's just like they're just trying it out. And I'm like, whoa. And I jump on it with immediate effect and I never hear it again. So think about how many kids, even the single moms, you can't hear everything. You're one parent, right? So usually in a house with two, you have double the effect of people listening out for problems, redirecting them on site, right? So when you lose that parent, it takes away your ability to be efficient and correct your children and all of that. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
Another thing, Sugar Mike, is foresight, right? When people talk about the value of fathers in the home and men in the home, I think they really underestimate the importance of foresight. For example,
Hmm.
the kids could have came in the house and been singing Pound Town or whatever, right? The mother or younger parents, mostly younger mothers that I've seen do this, they kind of encourage their kids and think that it's funny to watch them do certain stuff. Like it's funny to watch them curse. It's funny to watch them like
Mm.
twerk. It's fun. Like even what's going on with the fathers who aren't don't have primary custody, aren't in the home. Usually, what you'll see is the mothers allowing the kids to like dance and do things the fathers completely disapprove of, but because they're not in
Mhm.
the house and don't have authority over that household for whatever reason, those kids then are able to go down these tangents, and the mother or these parents lack the foresight, and it's mostly the mothers who lack the foresight in order to see how this can transition this into something that's going to be a huge problem for them down the
Later.
line. Yeah.
Absolutely. So not only is that true, do you know where I probably saw this for the very first time? Where I realized, oh snap, we're really in trouble. Even if I didn't realize it right there on the spot, I now look back and said, this is where we all went wrong. We've all gone to the barbershop that was also a beauty salon.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw the ladies in the back, some of them will have their kid with them while they're doing hair. And some song came on, and the boy starts shaking his butt and reciting the lyrics, and there was hella cursing in there. And all the barbers like literally just looking like, damn, look at this little, but all the women in there clapping, just like you say, like, hey, look at him, little cute. And they're like, this not my child. I can't. And I'm looking at them. I'm looking at the barbers, look at the boy, and look at the women. And I was like, oh, they don't approve of this, but that's not their child. So they're not going to say anything. But they absolutely know these women are doing something wrong that they do not approve of. And like you said, they have the foresight to know this is not going to end well for the boy. So that was it's pretty crazy.
Sugar Mike, if you don't mind, I don't mean to deviate, but what do you think caused the men in the barbershop to no longer say anything? Because once upon a time, if something like that would have occurred,
Yeah.
every barber would have known, man, look, man, what the hell you doing? Sit your ass
Yeah.
down. What do you think happened to where they don't feel like they can say
Yeah.
anything now?
Well, I mean, it's really just a part of the single mother, the evolution of single moms. The fact that they first off, you already have a degeneration in like a degenerative society if the women don't believe they're doing nothing wrong. So if any, this is the part where males never actually even had to step up because when you had a unified community that was unified by ideals, religion, same values, same character, the women would correct it before the men ever got there. There would be a woman in there, be like, get that boy down. And still you see some remnants of the older, but they're usually really old head women. But at some point, there'll be a middle-aged woman like, get that boy off there. In fact, tell him to go sweep hair with the boys, get him out from around all these women. There's nobody like that anymore. They like to encourage it. In fact, I think the bad part about it is the man was removed from the home. The woman, she's struggling, she's working while the boy is there. At some point, they all kind of dared to raise a better man than a man could and raise them their way. And we kind of saw that happen in the 90s where women were really gung ho about being single mothers. I don't need nobody. I got this. Power to the women. We're getting our education. It all started in that time. So
I have a question. Do you think that do you think that it has something to do with young motherhood? Maybe having kids
absolutely.
has a lot to do with it, more so than maybe those parents who are of younger age, maybe 18, a little bit younger, or early age people, and they have children, and what ends up happening is those younger mothers are teaching, because of the
I don't want to say young by age because that'd be incorrect.
Okay.
Historically, mothers have always been young, and the lack of community structure, the community kept them. They held them to a standard, and those women were a lot more mature than the younger moms now. So when you say younger, I agree, but I think it's I think it's a maturity thing and a mentality for motherhood.
So I don't know if y'all ever been around like older people who kind of had this mentality where they they always want the next thing. So it's like a weird mixture of hyper capitalism and hyper socioeconomic climate, right? And in doing so, they they do this thing where if a group that they admire or look up to does it, they believe it's okay, and then they promote it, right? So an example of that would be like, let me see, how can I say this? It's okay. Like, so my grandma would tell me something about, oh, I shop at Marshall Fields. I'd be like, Grandma, that's not the store where the white folks do it. Like, she's from that era where they would say something like that. I don't know if y'all have old elderly people who are like that. I think that the women of like my mother's age group, with the adoption of feminism and the sexual liberation type of movement, were so fluent with the things that they would allow. It was like a dichotomy between them rejecting the old norms of what women did and what women thought was acceptable because they saw it under the guise of how men viewed women, and them trying to like also like play like this weird social Jones, like keeping up with the Joneses type of game. Do you get what I'm saying? Did anybody see anything like that as well?
Yeah, but that doesn't have. I would think. I mean, the Joneses didn't shake their butt and talk about sex, did they?
Yes.
Maybe
So
trying to fit in.
when you
Maybe.
when you look at sexual liberation, if you were to say like this group of women has sexual liberation, we're in the free love era. You got peace, love, and happiness, right? The free love and free drug era of the 60s and the early 70s, right? If you were to be keeping up with those Joneses, that would drag you into that same sphere. It's the same. All right, it's the same thing as.
Okay.
Well, they were considered a subculture though. They weren't the mass. So when you're saying like the free love and all of that, they
Mhm.
were in direct opposition of what mainstream was. So that's why they were considered a subculture. So I think that's a little different.
So I feel like mainstream. Well, this is just a brainstorming thing because I don't have an exact, like I didn't do the research on this, right? But as it's formulating, I'm seeing it a little clearer, at least to me. And it seems like the it wasn't as much a fringe as it was people trying to keep it a fringe, but among that age demographic, that seemed like the way to go, right? So the elders would classify that as a phase or something. But amongst that age demographic, that was kind of the general idea. Because I always question, like, what is it about like the parents that are like from age 50 to like 65, 70 that made them so different where it's like it's almost impossible to get them to admit wrong and stuff. And they it's just a different mentality. Like they parents are different than that's that age group has like very similar qualities. I don't know if I don't know what generation they would be labeled, but they have
I
very
think
similar
that's
qualities.
each
What was done.
generation.
You say what?
Each generation, I think, has their like their little Kims, right? It's just gonna look different in the past generation, but they probably had their little Kims of what their generation was versus what ours is, and versus what the next generation that came after us, like the
No,
booty hole brown girl.
right.
So
I get that. So look,
yeah,
I looked up some
Can
songs
we
from like
find another name for Shorty other than
I
Booty
don't
Hole?
know her name.
Sexy
I'm
Red. It's Sexy
sorry.
Red.
Yeah,
It's
how
Sexy
about
Red.
Booty Hole Brown?
So
Girl.
I get that mistaken. I looked at a song from like 1924, right? And in that song, the lady was saying something like, "My nipples big as my thumb, and I got the type of coochie that can make a dead man come." And that's 1924. They were saying stuff like that. So the fringe has always existed where they said that, but I don't think in mass the people was burning their bras. I don't think in mass they was trying to like
Are people burning their bras that missed that memo? Because I still
In the
have mine.
60s.
this is the 60s. This is the era that I'm talking about where I think that the
Damn,
free
bras
love.
are expensive too. That's crazy.